Right now, someone you know is judging you. A coworker, a stranger online, maybe even someone in your own family. And here's the uncomfortable truth. You will never, ever control what they think. Most people spend their entire lives trying anyway, exhausting themselves in a war they were never going to win. But there's a small number of people who figured out the way out. Not by becoming cold, not by stopping to care about anything. By learning one distinction, the ancient Stoics discovered 2,000 years ago, a distinction that, once you truly understand it, changes everything about how heavy your days feel. There's a moment, right after you wake up, before your feet even touch the floor, when your mind is already running a silent audit. What did they think of what you said? Did that message sound needy? Are they talking about you right now, somewhere you can't see? You haven't done anything yet, and you're already tired. This is the hidden cost of caring too much about how others see you. It rarely arrives as one devastating blow. It's a slow leak, a little bit of your attention, your energy, your peace, siphoned off every single day. Until one morning, you realize you've spent years performing for an audience that forgot your name by the following week. Psychologists have a term for this, the spotlight effect, first studied in depth by researchers Thomas Gilovich and Kenneth Savitsky. Their experiments showed something almost embarrassing. People consistently overestimate how much others notice and remember about them. We are, each of us, the star of a movie that almost nobody else is watching. The ancient Stoics arrived at the same conclusion 2,000 years earlier, without a single lab study. They didn't tell people to become cold or numb. They pointed to something far more useful. Learn what belongs to you, and let go of what never did. That distinction is where real freedom begins. Epictetus was born a slave in the Roman Empire. He owned almost nothing, not his body, not his freedom, not his future. And yet he built one of the most enduring philosophical systems in history around a single, almost blunt observation. Some things are within our control, and some things are not. Your thoughts, your choices, your effort, the values you choose to live by, these are yours, fully and permanently. Nobody can take them without your consent. But your reputation, other people's opinions, whether they approve of you or dismiss you, none of that was ever yours to control, no matter how tightly you try to hold it. Most human suffering, Epictetus argued, comes from confusing these two categories. We pour enormous energy into a battle we cannot win, trying to manage what other people think, while neglecting the one battlefield we actually command, our own response. Here's what's counterintuitive. Understanding this doesn't make you indifferent to life, it makes you sharper. Because the moment you stop wasting energy on unwinnable fights, you have far more left over for the things that actually shape your days, your actions, your discipline, your character. That's not detachment, that's clarity doing its job. In Republican Rome, image was currency. Senators dressed to impress. Politicians spoke to be quoted. Reputation could make or break a career overnight. Cato the Younger understood this system better than almost anyone and chose, deliberately, to defy it. Historical accounts describe him walking through crowded public spaces in deliberately plain, sometimes almost shabby clothing, drawing stares and quiet mockery from Rome's elite. He wasn't doing it for attention. He was training himself, building a tolerance for disapproval, the way an athlete builds tolerance for pain, so that when a real moment of moral consequence arrived, the fear of judgment wouldn't be strong enough to move him off course. Plenty of people thought he was strange. Some despised him openly. But Cato kept going, not because he didn't care about people, but because he cared more about integrity than about applause. History remembers him now as one of Rome's most respected figures, not because he chased approval, but precisely because he never let it steer him. The lesson underneath this story is uncomfortable but important. Sometimes you have to accept being misunderstood for a while in exchange for the far rarer privilege of living in full agreement with yourself. Nobody is born afraid of being judged. It's learned, and it's learned early through the sting of being excluded from a group, the disappointment on a parent's face, the sharp memory of a classroom laugh aimed at you. For most of human history, social rejection wasn't just uncomfortable, it was dangerous. Being cast out of the tribe could mean losing protection, resources, even survival itself. Evolutionary psychologists have long noted that our nervous system still treats social threat with almost the same intensity it would treat physical danger, even though a single critical comment online carries none of the old stakes. This is why one harsh remark can echo in your mind for a week, while a dozen compliments evaporate in seconds. Your brain isn't broken. It's just running ancient software in a modern environment it was never designed for. Once you understand this mechanism, you gain something valuable: distance. The fear of judgment stops feeling like a fact about your worth and starts looking like what it actually is, an old survival reflex, firing in a context where it no longer applies. You don't need to silence that reflex, you just need to stop letting it hold the steering wheel. This is where the philosophy gets misunderstood the most. People assume Stoicism is asking them to go numb, to stop loving, stop reacting, stop being moved by life. That reading misses the point entirely. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, commanded armies, and buried people he loved, and still filled his private journal, what we now call meditations, with reflections on gratitude, duty, and compassion for others. He was not a cold man. What he refused to do was let other people's approval or disapproval determine his sense of his own worth. The freedom of not caring doesn't mean you stop loving people, stop contributing, stop building real connection. It means you stop needing them to think well of you in order to feel like you're enough. That's the real difference between living for other people and living alongside them. A free person can still love deeply, still show up fully without trading their inner peace for someone else's approval as the price of admission. Caring less about opinions and caring more about people, it turns out, aren't opposites. They often grow stronger together. This kind of freedom doesn't arrive overnight. It behaves like a muscle, weak at first, strengthened only through repeated, deliberate use. Start with noticing. The next time you catch yourself anxious about what someone might think, pause for 1 second and ask, does this actually belong to me, or am I trying to manage something I was never in charge of? Seneca taught his students a practice he called premeditatio malorum, deliberately imagining setbacks in advance, including being mocked, rejected, or misunderstood. Once you've rehearsed the worst case in your mind and recognized that you would, in fact, survive it, the fear built around it loses most of its grip. Another practice: deliberately do small things that make you slightly uncomfortable in front of others, not to provoke, but to build tolerance for being seen, being judged, being wrong in public. Each time you do it and come out fine, the nervous system updates its threat assessment. The more you repeat this, the less it feels like discipline, and the more it starts to feel like who you simply are. When you no longer need the whole room to nod in agreement with you, something shifts. You stop living in a defensive crouch against judgments that mostly exist only in your imagination. And in that shift, you find a kind of lightness most people never get to experience. You're still kind. You still show up for the people you love. You still try to do the right thing. But now you do it because it's right, not because you're afraid of what happens if someone disapproves. This is what the ancient Stoics understood, long before psychology gave it a name. Freedom was never about controlling the outside world. It was about no longer letting the outside world control you. Not caring, in the Stoic sense, was never about apathy. It was the largest gift a person could give themselves, a peace that depends on no one's permission but their own.